Yeah, but you know that certain months are, associated with certain ideas. It's like we have holidays. We just had Labor Day, right? The whole day dedicated to labor where nobody works, but honoring people who labor for us, I guess. I don't know why this is all black all of a sudden. Anyways, not that that's a problem. It's just I don't want to know why things change for some reason. All right, we did brief intro to Christianity. We're on sources of authority. Yes, hey. So, what is this month dedicated to by the U.S. government? What are we celebrating during this month or accentuating? Hispanic heritage. Who said that? Mr. Guzman, Hispanic heritage. Yeah, be careful of that. Well, I guess their drinks are what you call it, Dead Sea? Water. So be careful of it. I don't have any napkins or anything. I guess it's fine. It's fine. National Hispanic Heritage Month. So during these months, I like to honor or keep, incorporate it into the course, incorporate it into the class. I will be talking about some famous Hispanic Americans. Of course, I'm going to religify it, as you know, who are on their way to sainthood. So they're Hispanics. Were part of what is now is now the United States. In some cases, it wasn't yet. But or they were born in America or a territory of America where they're American citizens, and they are on their way to being declared officially as saints of the Catholic Church. Okay, so I'll start that on Thursday. Start talking with our first saint, which is Juniper Serra or Junipero Serra. We'll talk about him on Thursday. But today I'll just get right into it. It's writing. That's something else. This is what I want. Do 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 do. La da da da. Sources of authority. Okay. How can we talk about Jesus at all? What are our sources for Jesus? Someone might say, historical sources, religious sources that are authorities for us. Tell us what to think about him, what to do about him, etc., and so forth. Well, first, what's an authority? The word authority comes from the Latin word autor, from which we get our word author, which we usually associate, I think, with someone who wrote a book, but you don't have to necessarily write a book to be an authority, okay? Because the word autor in Latin that we get it from simply means an originator, someone who's the origin of something. So yeah, an author is the originator of the product, the work, which is the book or the writing. So that's the author. But it has a broader meaning than that in Latin. Originator, a creator, a maker. More conceptually, a model or a pattern. Yes, God bless you, Mr. Cummings. Yes, a model or a pattern, okay? Creator, originator, maker, yes, but if we broaden it out, a pattern for something. So our patterns. Jesus is our model. He's our pattern for the Christian. But, how do we interpret him? How do we know, what he wanted or what he wants? So anything that determines what you think or what you do, whether you like it or not. I mean, sorry, but I know. Just I was seeing on the news today, there is a murder at Burning Man. Anyone hear about that? Burning Man out in Nevada. Anyone know what Burning Man is? Yeah. So I guess the police will have to investigate. But the whole purpose of Burning Man is like everyone gets together and there's like no rules, right? You kind of just live and people give out free food and people and they have parties every night but there are basically, well, I shouldn't say there are no rules. That's not totally true. You have to, you can't bring garbage in, whatever, you have to take care of your own garbage and stuff like that. So they're big environmentalists in that way. They don't want to sully the land. But there are still authorities. even if you live in a town, there's some guy on the internet I watched on a YouTube channel. His name Drew Binsky. Goes all over the place, visits weird places and countries, not weird countries, but countries and weird places. And one place he went to here in the United States, I forget where it is. I know it's out west, but I don't remember where out west. The town with no laws. There's no police force, no government, no nothing. Just a bunch of people living together. But there are still authorities. They make up the laws. Because one guy was yelling at him for photographing him or filming him without his permission. All right. Well, so what? I want to film. I'm gonna film. You don't want me to film? Walk away. But the guy's like yelling at him. No, get that camera. So even though you can live on a hippie commune where all is love and there are no rules, except the only rule, which is love, but you'll still know who's making the coffee every morning. Bob, to make the coffee, that's your job. Thought there were no rules. No, there's always an authority. Okay, I think that's obvious. Hello, Ms. Peralty. There are stop signs coming in that you're supposed to stop at. There are speed limits when I was driving here telling me what I should be driving. No, I generally try to obey them, yes. And they determined my behavior, determined how I was going to operate my vehicle. The syllabus is an authority. I'm an authority. It determines what you're going to, even if you don't want to do the syllabus, even if you decide I'm not going to do this. Okay, you're recognizing that there's a pattern or a model that I want you to follow at least, and you can accept it or reject it. Accept or reject the authority, but it's still there. It's still an authority. So we all have this experience of authorities, people or things that control us, our parents, our teachers, our coaches. And some of you might be authorities. I don't know, some of you might have children already. Okay, so you're already an authority. Or you might be maybe you are a teacher. I mean, some of you are in educational programs, you're learning how to be educators. And so you go out to practice in an education lab. You're the authority. And usually we would hope, this doesn't tell us what kind of authority we're dealing with. Let me just see if I had a picture. There we go. This kind of authority, this definition of an authority, it's kind of just general. It's a thing or a person that determines us. Doesn't say whether it's good or bad, okay? Hope, when I'm in my exercise class, we're doing burpees. Well, I'm not doing burpees. I'm trying to do burpees. I'm usually on the wall just going, okay, would it please make it stop? But the woman she was a former gymnast, she's an authority. I listened to her. And hopefully she's helping me, even though she's hurting me. I don't know anyone who thinks exercise is necessarily pleasurable. Oftentimes it's painful. It's not pleasurable. Lifting weights, you're tearing muscle, so it hurts. The burn, we don't call it pain, we call it a burn. Or I should say we, because look at, obviously I'm not a bodybuilder, But, you go out running and stuff like that, not now because you're all young, but in 10 or 15 years, you'll notice that, you go out running like you did before always, but now your knees hurt or your legs hurt or your lower back hurts or something. It's painful, but you like doing it maybe. It's benign, but it's painful. So an authority hopefully is benign. It's a good thing. It's telling you good things. The speed limits are not, I don't think it's just for the man to keep me down and I can't drive 55. Is that Sammy Hagar anyways, it's not like the man is trying to do, there are limits for a reason. Maybe, it's 35 miles or 25 miles because it's a neighborhood and there are a lot of children around, like it's a school zone or something. They want to make sure that if I do run over one of little wieners, I do it slowly enough that it's recoverable. I'm not just going to kill the kid at 60 miles an hour, Maybe I'll just bump him or her. God forbid, But there's a reason for it. It's benign. But sometimes authorities are not benign. They cannot be helpful. Hopefully they are, but not always. The difference between a benign religious group, like say the Jesus movement, and one that's not benign, which we usually call cults. So we all have this experience. The Catholic Church, as just a reality, okay, it's not, an institution with structures, has authorities. It has authorities for how it views and approaches the world and human life. And these authorities comprise the overarching governing principles, the presumed standards, you might say, Ms. Miller, for how Christians are to live, think, and believe. To live, think, and believe. Live their lives, think about things, and believe. So I have this picture here of, it's Pope Benedict XVI. He's dead now, may he rest in peace. But I think this is during Holy Week on Good Friday. But it could have been some other time. But anyways, I just thought it was a nice picture because you see who the authority is. All right? He's the Pope, Bishop of Rome, but he's not the ultimate authority. You can usually tell who the authority is when you're kneeling to it, or you're lowering yourself to it. And he's lowering himself. He's on his knees in front of an image, not even the real person of Jesus, you might say, but an image of the crucified Jesus, a reminder of the crucified Jesus. Even the memory of Jesus makes even the Pope get to his knees. So it tells you something about maybe how important this man is. Not this man, but there's a guy over him who's more important than he is. It's his authority. La da 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 da. Still got open chairs, Miss Franco Zamora, anytime. Is it? Anyways, what are the sources of authority for Catholic or Christian belief? Well, there are two elements we need to talk about. Reason and faith. The mind, we could maybe say the mind and the heart, if you want to put it into maybe modern terms, pop psychology, I guess, or pop religion. But reason and faith, our minds and our wills, I guess you would say. Faith is more belief, which is an act of the will. Well, it's an act of the intellect, which moves the will. But so reason and faith. What is reason? Reason, my definition, an act of the intellect. The intellect, just another fancy philosophical term for the mind, or the brain, if you want to put it that way, if you're a materialist. Simply means to understand. I think I define this later, but intelligo in Latin means to understand. So you could also say an act of our understanding, by which our mind, the human mind, thinks, makes theories, hypotheses from our thoughts, and understands the world in an orderly way. Yes, orderly way. That's important, Ms. O'Brien. Because you may have met people who don't understand the world in an orderly way. You say they are related to the word reason. Irrational. Irrational. They're without reason. Well, not necessarily. No. A schizophrenic has reason. It's not orderly reason. Some cases, a person you say is crazy is actually thinking too much, thinking too rationally, Like if this is this and then that is that, then it follows that this must be this, and they take, it's like an extreme form of reason in that sense. But reason, it's an orderly use of our mind, okay? How we think things through. We think about things. Why does bad stuff happen to good people? Okay, I don't know why, but, maybe I have an idea, but I'm thinking about that. That's thinking. And then I might theorize about it. I take my thoughts and I try to interconnect them and see, if I can make something that makes sense to me, makes sense to my world. And why do I want to make sense to it? Because I want to understand my world. I want my world to be understandable. But what separates me from someone who has a mental illness, I hope, is that I'm doing all these things in an orderly fashion. They make sense. I'm avoiding logical fallacies, assumptions. I'm not making assumptions. Okay? Or if I do, I know I'm making assumptions. Okay? Like I can go around, the campus saying, "Hey, I'm John the Baptist," I'm making, well, no, it's absolutely true. It has to be. Why? Well, because I come from New Jersey. And somehow that's logic. I don't know, but it's like, well, wait a second. John the Baptist, if he existed, he's an historical figure from 2,000 years ago. You're not 2,000 years old, right? No. And didn't he have his head cut off? So, but you have your head on, right? So number one, his head was cut off and he died, and you're alive, and you have your head, and he didn't. I'd explain that, John. Well, some people can, because they're not thinking in an orderly way, right? They're not thinking that way. I'm thinking in an orderly fashion. They're not. And if you challenge their thinking, sometimes you can have issues. People with mental illness can freak out, or sometimes you see this when you challenge someone's theory, and they get angry, they get emotional over it. It's just your theory. It's just your idea, But they get mad. I don't want to talk to you anymore. 9/11 was an inside job. That's it. Not going to talk. Bigfoot exists. That's it. Not going to, no. Reason and faith. It comes from Anglo-French, our word reason. I like to do etymologies. Maybe you guessed that already, but whatever. Get used to it, people. Strap yourself in, Mr. Rodley. Well, you had me before. Anglo-French, raison, which comes ultimately from Latin. French is a Latin language, Latin based on Latin, comes from Latin. It's ancient language, dead language now. And it's called Anglo-French because about 1,000 years ago, the French Normans from France invaded the south of England, and they brought with them their French-based language, which allowed a whole bunch of Latin words through French to pour into the English language. So we took them. So we don't use a Germanic word for reason here, which we could. Wissenschaft, not reason in German. I'd have to look it up. But we use a Latin-based word, raison, from ratio, which is based on the verb reor, to calculate. Like numbers, okay? That's why anyone taking philosophy, any philosophy majors, anyone taking philosophy courses? Yeah, you are. What are you taking? That's not logic. Ooh, okay, yes. So you're deep into it. You're flying in New York, right? With reason, yes, logic. I majored in philosophy as a pursuit. The graduate level, but nevertheless. So yeah, I remember taking logic. Yeah, if you learn, have you taken history of philosophy at all? Okay. Well, you'll learn that, analytical philosophy is basically logic philosophy. For some philosophers, that's all philosophy and reason is. It's logic, logical equations, And a lot of the early philosophers of the modern period, like the 1700s, they loved mathematics, calculation, because numbers, you can't go wrong with numbers. 2 is always a 2. A million is always a million. You add them together, they add up, they come, you calculate them, they come up with the same thing. Maybe. Once you get into theoretical mathematics and really huge numbers, then all bets are off. But okay, but that's what they believe. And so, yeah, if you get into philosophy, physics also, physicists love this. They love equations and all that sort of stuff. It's all sets and numbers. They love it because it's so logical. Calculation, it just makes sense. Except when it doesn't make sense. That's another. They assume that was their assumption. But it comes from reason. So they think it's rational. It's the most rational of sciences, mathematics. A lot of So if you do delve into philosophy, the history of philosophy, a lot of philosophers, in addition to talking about what is love, what is the world, stuff like that, they're also big into mathematical questions and stuff like that, because kind of like help them center the mind on the rational relationships. So yes, they like math very much. In addition to philosophizing. So calculation. But notice also what reor means in Latin. It has that sense of, okay, I guess a rigid thing of, okay, we always come up with the right answer in mathematics, right? Hopefully. If your calculations are correct. Just like if we calculate logically, you should always come up with the right answer, right? Is that how the human mind works? No. Reor, to believe something. To think it, to imagine it. Yes. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Imagine something is also reason. When you're reasoning or imagining the arguments, okay? They don't appear in your head like mathematical formulae, do they? No. You use all sorts of concepts and symbols to then connect together. You think logically. I was thinking about this on the way over here. I got a 2-hour drive, so what else am I going to do? Mr. Guzman. That's circular reasoning, right, Mr. Guzman? You appeal to A, you say A is true because B is true. Well, why is B? Well, look to A again, right? A logical fallacy. Is it Mr. Cumming, Mr. Hinkle, right? Back me up here.
Circular logic.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
It's actually provided definition of reasoning. This is this because of this, this is this because of this.
What if that's the case?
Doesn't show any actual reason.
I have a reason? I said this is this because of this. This
You're
is
showing a potential correlation.
well. I'm not trying to argue causation. Okay, yeah, okay. Oh no, great, you're right. A relationship. Okay. So what's wrong with that? It has to be a causal relationship. It can't just be a relationship.
I think of a good example.
That's all right. That's good. That's what philosophers do. No, I agree with you. I mean, I know I agree with you. It's circular. It's not very good reasoning. It's not really very good. It's basically I said so reason because I said so. Why do we do that? Well, the Bible says so. Well, why do we believe the Bible? Well, because the Bible comes from God. Well, how do we know it comes from God? Because the Bible says so. Oh, well, why do we believe the Bible then? Because it comes from God. It's like a loop in your computer, that you have to restart. Turn off the computer and hopefully the loop ends. Faith. What is faith then? Well, if you have reason, then faith must be the opposite, right? Because if you have a duality, two things, they must be the opposite of each other, or opposed to each other, or in conflict. They can't be integrated. They can't come together, can they? Faith, the belief in God. This is the traditional definition, the theological definition. The belief in God and in what he has revealed because he is truth itself. Okay, so that's like the catechism definition. Again, the word derives ultimately from our friends, the Normans, Anglo-French, fate. For a period of time, they did not speak English in the English court because the French had invaded and won. So the court was French. The King of England was actually French, of French descent. And they spoke French and didn't speak English. And you can see this the development in the coat of arms of the British royal family. The motto of the British royal family is in French, not in English. I forget what it is, faith in God or something like that. Love of God, something. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, but it's in French. It's not in English. Fate, from the Latin fides, which means trusting, belief. So faith equals belief. Yes, that's true. Trusting in something, trusting in your own logic, trusting in someone else, what someone tells you, or something you've seen or experienced. Talk about faith later. So hold on a second here. I do talk about faith later, but I'm not sure if I want to say this now or say it later. Yeah, I'll come back to it. Okay, so just learn the definition for now. Because the catechism definition. Oh, basically, any faith does not have to have a religious value. I mean, any kind of belief or trust or something is faith in a way. Okay? But most people are going to peg it or attach it to religion. Okay? And in the Catholic sense, it's ultimately belief in the ultimate truth, which is God, who is hopefully truthful. Because if he's lying to us about what is true, well, we got a problem. Put us at DEFCON 1. There's a DEFCON 4 is the bad one. I always forget. 1's the bad one. Thank you, sir. Yes. You don't want to have an all-powerful being who's lying to you. Or bad. Because then what are you going to do? I don't know what I would do in that case. What could I do? I'm not the all-powerful being. So reason. Let's start with reason. Ooh, there's our friend. The brain, yes. The different parts of the brain. Frontal, temporal. Temporal means the side. Parietal, I guess the back. Occipital, the very back. All the way in the back. Frontal, that's easy. I can remember that one. I can remember temporal, but I always could never remember parietal and occipital for some reason. Anyways, just various parts of the brain that, neurologists have mapped, and, then they further divide it up into, these different parts of the brain have different parts that do different things. Some control our language, our memories, sleep, all sorts of stuff. So reason. Let's presume, you don't have to presume this, but from perspective of Christian faith, that there is a God. We'll talk about God in a later class, but there is a supernatural being, the source of all existence, that has all perfections, all powerful, is another way of putting that. Whatever. However you can, whatever you conceive of a God, okay? If the belief is, usually it follows that this God is a creator, at least for Christianity and Judaism. God created the world and he created human beings. However he did that, or this God did that, I don't know, I wasn't there. But there are stories. But nevertheless, go with it. We're contingent on the activity of this God. And whether we were given reason or we developed reason, we have the ability to think, yes? Yeah, Ms. O'Brien, do we have the ability to think? Do you have the ability to think? Do you think I do? How do you know? That's an assumption, Ms. O'Brien. You don't know what's going on up here. I would imagine that if we were given reason by this God, or this God allowed or permitted us to develop thought and thinking, rationalization, that it might follow that we know something about what this God intended. He did not create the human person as a robot or a puppet. It's a tool to be used. Okay, and not just to tell me when I need to get up in the morning so I can, get here on time for class. But the big things, no, just rely on God, the big life decisions. But, to regulate our bodies and, make sure we get up in the morning, help us to walk and move and all these things, these mechanical things and whatever, but not to really think, you know what I'm saying? No, I would imagine that it's more than that. We're not just controlled, either as puppets, the strings, you know. Okay, I think I'll go to class today. You know, or you're not a robot like, okay, set the alarm here every Sunday, 10 a.m., go to mass. Oh, Sunday, 10 a.m., I go to mass. Oil can, oil can. What? I would imagine that if we have reason and we believe that it came from a God, if you're a God believer, that God made human beings to think about the world they live in and to think independently, because God's not in my yapping in my ear telling me all the time what to do, how to do things. I'm able to think independently. I'm able to make decisions about how to live in this world amongst other people. I have a mind. I have a brain. I have an intellect, the power to understand. It's an ability. In philosophical language, they may call it a faculty of the mind to reason and to understand. So there's the understanding. We have our reason, but it's based on this faculty that underlies it about even having an intellect, of even having a mind. As I told you before, the Latin word intelligo simply means to understand something. To understand, have accurate knowledge of something. Hopefully we have accurate knowledge. But yeah, to understand. So our ability to understand is another way of putting it. And that's the place, the intellect, the understanding is the place where we exercise our reason. Or logic, if you want to call it that. We infer things, we have some evidence, but we make some assumptions about the evidence and infer what the evidence means, I can infer, you saw me mop up the water. I didn't see a leak from the ceiling, so I can infer that someone put a cup there and it condensed and, it was cold, or hotter out in the air than it was in the thing, and it condensed and the water dripped onto the table, and it's human activity. It's not just there for no reason. That's an inference. I deduce things logically. Usually deductions are more solid than inferences. But I have data, I've got something to base it on. Okay? Mostly, I've never seen Bigfoot, but I can believe Bigfoot exists. But I still am looking for evidence. And I think might have evidence for the existence of this creature. So understanding, but there's another thing. Not just understanding things, but doing things, making choices with what we know. Okay? We're not just big-brained primates who are writing out logical equations. We're not just minds. We're also deciders. We have the power or the ability to make choices from our understanding. And that's the will. The will is our power, our faculty of making choices. Underlined, just like the intellect is our faculty for reason. And what is a choice? A choice is simply to decide to do something or not do something. It's that simple. Okay? Do A or not do A. That's a choice. I don't know if you can choose not to make a choice. I guess that's possible. But whatever, let's just stick with this definition. Choisir or choisir from Old French came into the English language simply to make a distinction of something, to recognize something. So you're making a distinction between your options. You're choosing your options as a distinction. This might be better than the other, so I'll do this because it benefits me rather than do that. But ultimately, choisir comes from the idea of tasting, tasting food. Do I want to eat this? Well, what does a baby do? What does any animal do? They're not, many animals will sniff before they taste, but yeah, I'm not sure we'll just give it a taste, see if you like it. Okay. Oh, that's good. Good. Yeah, I do want that. Or no, I don't like it. So keep it away. Yeah. Choisir, choice, to taste something. So apparently we have this freedom because we do. No one's forcing me to make the choices. Apparently, I don't know about what's going on in your heads or your lives or bodies or whatever, but I don't feel compunction or compulsion to make these choices or to think certain ways. So I have freedom to create myself. I'm not saying there are no influences on me. Obviously, like if you talk to anyone, some of you are doing social work and stuff like that. So maybe they'll expose you to like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. I don't know if anyone's heard about that yet or stumbled over it yet. Basically, thinking about your thoughts, how you talk to yourself, and you can have that script in your mind. The parental script. You gotta go to class today. That tells you to do stuff. You can have the baby script. I want this. I just want it. I want it. I want it. It's illogical. Just desires and wants. So I'm not saying we don't have influences, but we seem to have some kind of freedom because you did not have to be here, but you're here. But you're here. Why? I mean, I didn't come and get you. All right. No one carried you in, you know. Now, I mean, I think a lot of neuroscientists would disagree with that and say that no, we are actually not free. There is no free will. That we're all just, puppets of our chemical reactions and stuff that's going on in the brain. Okay, all right. But I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't know the scholarship. Maybe they have a good case to make for it. I guess there's stuff on YouTube I could watch, but I don't know. I'm looking for the explanation. I'm looking for the activity, the experience. I know my own experience. But, if a person can come or not come, well, okay, what's going on in the brain that makes the person come or not come? And where's its consistency? Because someone can be absent a few times, but come most of the time. Why is it inconsistent if it's kind of like locked in stone in our brains that this is how the brain is wired? Your genes are just like this, and that's how you're going to be. Okay, maybe some things, I don't know. But I would say that, at least from a Christian perspective, the belief is that this God has made us free to exercise our reason and our faith as we want. So, according to this, human beings are designed, think about that, to think about their experience in the world and to choose what to do about it. If you're a God, wouldn't you want more control, Mr. Cloza? Wouldn't you want to make sure that the monkeys don't get too uppity? You want to make sure that they just screw things up? I mean, even in computer programs, don't they leave back doors? Like, okay, you can use Windows, but or you can have your iPhone, but like the NSA, the National Security Agency, really needs to get into your phone to spy on you. They can do it, read all your information or plug you. Don't you think a good God, practical God would be like, okay, I gotta have at least one control on this species. Can't let them think too much and do too much. Wouldn't you? Does that make sense? What did your parents do to you? They're not gods, but I'm assuming. I don't know what your religious beliefs are, dude. Did your parents kind of let you run free, or did they always have that little pullback, like, no, that's as far as you go? Why doesn't God do that? Why isn't that built in? Maybe death. Maybe that's God's control. Well, at least I'll get rid of it eventually. But until then, I'll let them do all the damage that they want to do. Stupid stuff. Go on spring break. And all the good things too, sir. All the hospitals and Good stuff. Why would a God design a creature like this? A perfect creature I could understand. But a creature that does what we've done and will do, we don't even know what we'll do in the future, but read history and you know what we've done as a species. So humans were reasonable and we're responsible, where we can use our minds and we can make choices. So, which we're responsible for. That's where responsibility comes from. You didn't make the choice. I made the choice, Mr. Gaffney. So we don't send you to jail. We send me to jail if I do something wrong. Maybe in some Kafkaesque world, you know, it could be. You never know. You never know. Anyone never see the movie Under Siege? Steven Seagal, Under Siege, action movie. No, is it still my? It's from the '90s, so I guess the reference is too old. Don't you people have streaming? I mean, give me a break. You got Hulu. Yeah, you got Hulu. You got Netflix. You got Amazon Prime. The '80s, and I never saw it. I lived in the '80s. In the '70s. What is it? Take all day. You don't watch any stuff, anything before 2000? Well, then you don't know, or you don't see how much they're ripping off this stuff. And I was like, I've seen this movie before. Yeah, so I was watching a movie the other day, and I'm like, you just ripped off that episode from Columbo. You know, candidating crime. It's ripped off Columbo. Anyways, so the person is responsible for thinking and choosing correctly. I'm responsible for thinking and choosing correctly. Notice, God's not responsible if there is a God. And I'm assuming there is because I'm a Christian in this Christian faith. So even though there is a God, he's not responsible for me to think and to act. He can give me an instruction manual. You see the billboard sometimes you're driving along and some evangelical church puts up, have you read God's instruction manual? The Bible, of course, That's true. I still have to think about it and reason over the scriptures and then choose what they're telling me to do, I think. So these are serious obligations. They're expected obligations. Okay, and these abilities of thinking and also believing and trusting, making choices, allow humans to search for God and to have a relationship. Here's where we're getting to. This is where the rubber hits the road. What's the purpose? Relationship. Relationship. Because God is a person. God's not a concept or just some amorphous thing from which the universe emerged. God is personal. And with any other person that I've experienced, just true, God is very, very different. He wants a relationship. And if I'm just a robot or just a puppet or just a slave, I'm not really in a relationship with that other entity. I'm always under it, a thing to it, under its control. That's not a relationship. But apparently God wants us to have a relationship, which involves us thinking and choosing. Maybe not in the ways that he does. That's where it gets dangerous for us. So, reason, these things confer a capacity. They make us capable, an ability for God. This desire for something, call it a God, call it something else. The word doesn't really matter to me, but that humans have a desire for something else. You never want to be just here. Even if it's just simply a materialist, atheistic desire, like get Elon to Mars. You know, it's all he cares about. That's the whole purpose of his car company, of his other stuff, his space. He personally wants to be transported to the planet Mars. That's his passion. The movies, the stories we tell, our mythologies. It's never here. We always want to go someplace else. To Rivendell, across the great sea, where the elves live. Want to go to the other parts of the universe where no man has been before, hang out with the Klingons. Or travel. Even if it's not leaving this planet, but we want to see other places on the planet. Why? You're fine here. It's doing you well, right? No, why do you need to see New Zealand? It's there. But so? We want to be someone else. We have this desire. Even if it's not purely a religious desire, there's something in us that makes us yearn. We have a capacity for yearning more. And when it's supernatural or it's a religious capacity, then it shows itself in the world's religions. These things develop. People develop structures and rituals and stories and books about this desire for, say, another place. Wouldn't it be nice if we could live forever? We know we can't. I'm not saying we can't. Okay, I'm not denying the resurrection of the flesh, but I'm saying in theory, someone would say, "Well, we know we die. We know we can't." But wouldn't it be nice to just entertain the thought? That's why so many of the science fiction movies, you ever notice they're almost always set in the future, usually long into the future. Well, who knows what the future? It's always wrong, obviously. I mean, there are movies now that are in the year. What was the movie? Escape from New York was it's the year 1999 or 1998, and Manhattan has been turned into a federal prison. Almost. It might be. Right, Ms. Lacey? No. Hold on a second. See. Okay, so I know it's not that. Ms. Cottrell? Not Ms. Cottrell. No, it's not Ms. Lacey. I know who Ms. O'Brien is. Sakloza, yes. I got you. Via, yes. Ba. No. Really? What's the first letter of your last name, Miss? Oh, Ms. Robbins. I'd forgotten it. And Ms. Robbins. Well, of course, Escape from New York looks nothing like the 90s when I was living, and you all weren't, of course. So why put the movie into the future? We don't know what the future is going to be, or the past. Maybe we know something more about the past. These time travel movies and stuff. People, we like to think that we can go back and forth, and we can be there when George Washington was at Valley Forge, or we can be in the future when the Earth has been decimated and we're all living on some space station over the Earth, and what's going to happen. Of course, we don't know. But we want to know why. Why is that desire there? Ask your dog. Your dog might be wiser than you because your dog just does what is a dog. Not worrying about these things. So come to know things from our rational. Oh, I got to that. All right. The human person, we know things from our rational experience of human life. And who would like to read this? This is from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, section or paragraph 33. Anyone would like to read this for me? Let's see. Doris, I got you, but I want to get her name. Ms. Cottrell? Oh, you're Ms. Lacey. Okay, sorry, Ms. Lacey. Would you like to read this, Ms. Lacey? Okay, go ahead.
Jesus of our life, all this in the service of the soul sings out, telling fair sides, introducing material, that's what
Excellent. Thank you. Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 33. Okay, so in this rather short section, there's a lot going on here. All right, basically, what are we sensing when we sense this desire? This sense of not just a relationship we want with other people, but an ultimate relationship. We want an ultimate relationship with whatever's out there, or what we think is out there. Again, call God and call something else. But whatever is out there. The aliens. If that's what you're, that's what you're looking for, Hopefully they're good aliens, not like Independence Day aliens, like close encounters of the third kind aliens. Yeah, we're seeking that. We want a relationship. We're identifying or feeling already what we call a soul. Okay? And some people might not like the word soul because it's too religious, but whatever. I mean, that's kind of like what we're experiencing, I think. Put any kind of other word on it you want. In religion, we say a soul. This in our life, breath, or animating force within us, but something that is animating us to be transcendent, to be beyond ourselves. Okay? Why are we here in this classroom when, drive down the road or something, a bunch of cows are just there in the pasture, some of them are lying down, taking a rest, others are chewing the grass, flitting their tails around, keep bugs away. They're not here. And you know what, tomorrow, Mr. Inkle, you know what they'll be doing?
Anything?
Yeah, they'll be doing the same thing. Maybe standing up, if you like Greg Larson. The far side. No, what do they do? Because that's right, Mr. Hinkle. I'm not around cows all the time, so I don't know what they're doing when I'm not around. They could be pulling out the laptops just like you and going to town. But we're transcendent. We want to be more than we are, apparently. Our soul. What are we seeking? Well, we're open to truth and beauty. I think that's kind of, that's a general, anyone can affirm that. People like the truth and they like beautiful stuff. Okay? And for the most part, you're always going to find the outlier who's like, no, lie to me all the time. That's, did you tell me the truth? Is that true, Ms. Franco Zamora? Don't you know I want you to lie to me? Can't you get it through your head? Lie to me. Tell me what's not true. That's the only way I can know. And I want ugliness. I don't want beauty. Well, something, beauty, as they say, is in the eye of the beholder. You can look at some gnarled tree and say, oh, that's ugly, and some person might look at it and say, oh, it's beautiful. It's light, it's light. Spiders, to some people, are beautiful. To other people, they're creepy and, whatever. Okay, yeah, I get it. But I think in general, we like beauty, You're wearing the clothes you're wearing in some cases because you like the color sometimes. You like the feel. That's part of beauty, that the sense, it's pleasurable to you. Beauty gives us pleasure, okay? Visual pleasure, but, there's the beauty of the various senses and, and it attracts us. You go to an art gallery and people are all there looking at stuff. And you go up to someone and say, well, why are you here? And the person says, well, I don't like pretty things. I like ugly stuff that's really disturbing and disgusting. So I'm here. I thought, you know what? I'm going to go into an art gallery. That's where I should go. No, I think that's, we understand that from our experience. We don't want to be lied to, and we like pleasant stuff. Looking at things, feeling things, sensing things. And part of this is we like moral goodness. Which doesn't necessarily mean righteousness, not even in a religious sense. It can simply mean that people basically do what they say they're going to do. He's a good person. Why? Because he does what, he tells me this and tells me that, and he does it. He's authentic, or she's authentic. If a person lies to you all the time, or tells you that they're going to do stuff for you and they never do it for you. All right, you might say, well, you might not say they're a bad person, but maybe untrustworthy or something, but Are they a morally good person if they keep doing what they say they don't believe in? They act like they don't believe in what they don't believe. So moral goodness, we try to do that. Try to attain that. We try to be authentic to ourselves, act the way we say we believe or think. Nothing necessarily religious about that. We sense freedom. We sense that we can do stuff or not do stuff. That's freedom, basically. Conscience, that there is something in us governing us. And this doesn't matter whether, as the neuroscientists say, it's your genes or your brain matter, the way it's organized, okay? Telling you, don't kill the innocent. Don't kill those who don't need killing, basically. Or don't harm another person. Don't harm a child or something or whatever. Or try to tell the truth. Try to tell the truth. You're not giving yourself these, even if you've been told these things, well, let's play that game of, okay, well, where were my parents taught it, Where did my mom learn that it's nice to be nice, that kindness is good? Why kindness? Why not punching people in the nose sometimes? Sometimes they need a little smack in the mouth. That should be the response, not turning the other cheek, turning away, walking away. It's better to walk away. No. Maybe it's contextual. You got to judge each situation by the situation. But anyways, you don't say, well, Mom, where did you get that from? Maybe her mom told her, or her dad, or she heard it at church or the mosque or whatever. Okay, fine. But where did they hear it from? Oh, well, we learned that from the gospel, from Jesus. Okay, well, where did Jesus hear it from? God, the ultimate. But nevertheless, we still have something within us, a voice you could call it, or some kind of, that is part of us, but is kind of like a standard bearer within us. We know when we should do a certain thing and not do another thing. And if we do one thing, if we violate that, we don't feel good about it for some reason. It has physical effects, even in your body. What is that? It's called conscience. But what is it? Where did it come from? Is it just from our brain? Okay. Is it just from material? Is it something more than that? Is it also evidence of a supernatural or spiritual element to us? We recognize that. We want to live forever. We don't want the story to end. Maybe some people do, but I think a lot of people don't. They don't want the story to end. They want the infinite, infino, no end. And they want to be happy. People want to enjoy themselves in whatever fashion that is, Could be ultimate happiness, but it could just simply be, sitting out in the sunshine and like a beautiful day like this, enjoying this, well, whatever sun is out there, a lot of clouds, the cool weather, it's not too humid out. If you like this kind of weather, some people like it really cold or really hot. Maybe it's not your type of weather, but whatever floats your boat, whatever you like, it makes you happy. You're searching for that. If a person is searching for unhappiness, then you got a problem. Because we think that's a sign of mental illness, right? If a person I'm losing a nut. Wow, that's when it rains, it pours, Ms. B. You know what I'm saying? Like if a person is cutting himself or cutting herself because they want to feel the pain, they want to cause pain to themselves, that's usually not a sign of a good thing going on. That's usually when you want to refer someone to health and wellness, or take the kid to a shrink and say, why, okay, Mike, why are you cutting your arm all the time? Because I like to feel pain. And the psychologist is like, oh, okay, yeah. Most people want to feel happiness, but no, in this case, I've got this person who wants to feel pain. Nothing wrong with that. Do we treat it that way? No, we don't. We assume that people want happiness, or at least homeostasis, if you can't get happiness. And all of these things taken together, it's not just one thing in particular, but if you take all of these things, that are part of the human existence. You know, we don't want to be lied to. We want to see and experience pleasurable things. We want to do the right thing, whatever we conceive that to be. Okay, it might not necessarily be the same for everybody, but what we think, we want to be authentic. We don't want it to end. If possible, if it were possible, we would like to exist after death, or maybe exist forever or for a very long time, if possible. We want to be happy. We don't want life to suck. All of these things lead people to start thinking about this. God. Is there something beyond me? Because I can't give all these things to myself. I know I'm not always happy. I know I don't always do the right thing that I think I should do. I'm not authentic to myself. I don't always say truthful things. I don't always give myself over to the beautiful or seek the beautiful. I do wallow in the mud and the refuse sometime. And I think a lot of humans, at least what I can tell on the internet, don't worry. But you don't have to spend too much time on the internet to see that it doesn't seem to be just me, Farley. I don't think it's just me who has these problems. It seems to be a worldwide problem, multicultural problem across, transnational problem, what have you. So if I'm not able to give these things to myself, even though I want them, well, who or what can? Something else. Call it a God. And there's something in me that makes me not just capable for experiencing truth and beauty to some extent, but makes me want it even more. Like a heroin addict, Get a little bit of truth and I want more, baby. I don't want ever to be lied to, So that's why I watch Fox News. I know, Ms. Peralty, they'll never lie to me. That's okay, because then I just switch over to CNN. Same clowns, different makeup. It's like, okay. Experience. How do we know these things? Well, these are part of what I've been talking about, experience, okay? If the experiences I've described to you make no sense to you, and so far Mr. Hinkle has not raised his hand and challenged me, so I'm going to be... I'm just messing with you. But, if my experience doesn't jive with yours, okay, then you're going to disagree. But if I'm making sense to you to some extent, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm having that experience. I've had that experience as well, which is also a form of knowledge. We know things also from our experience. We're not just brains, but we have our sensory faculties where we sense and we see the world. We hear the world. We smell the world around us. All these things give us information about our world. Okay? Experience. Think of, again, choisir, choice, taste. I remember I was in the seminary, well, one of the many seminaries. Somehow I got being asked to leave. I don't know why. But one of these seminaries I was at, we had a New Zealander there, a guy from New Zealand, very nice guy. And it was my first exposure to this thing called Vegemite. Anyone heard of Vegemite? Yeah. This black gunk that he told me was like peanut butter. And apparently the New Zealanders and also people from Australia love this stuff. Spread it all over the place. Like, okay, I'll try it. I've never experienced it before. Okay, Vegemite. Tried it. Last time I ever tried it. I'm like, this is garbage. This is terrible. You're like, yeah, but you eat peanut butter, don't you? I'm like, excuse me. They start combining Vegemite and chocolate, then comes off. But peanut butter, they're not in the same world. This is terrible. I knew it. I tasted it. I experienced it. And that gave me the knowledge. Okay? It wasn't rational knowledge. Okay? It wasn't a 2 + 2 = 4 knowledge. But it told me something about myself that I did not respond well to this food product. I didn't like it. Experience. Knowledge derived from my observation, what I observe, or when I participate in something, okay? That's what, our whole modern science is based on experience. It's not based on just reasoning. You might reason something, that's your hypothesis, but testing it is the experiential side of it. Empirical sciences, yes? Empirical means experience. So the person with the theory, the idea, has to actually go into a place or do something to then test it and experience. I think X will happen if I do this. Does it happen in the lab under certain conditions? Does it happen? Does it not happen? Does the proper data come back? That's experiential. It's not necessarily, experience isn't necessarily wrong. I know, if I've ever been, I've never been stabbed with a knife. I can imagine what it might be like to be stabbed with a knife. I don't think I would like it, Ms. Dumas. I don't think I would like it. But it's never happened to me. Well, how can you know? If you haven't smoked pot, how do you know it's bad? On spring break, look at all the knuckleheads. Observe. Be like an anthropologist. Observe. Cults. Experience. It gives you some. It's not an infallible form of knowledge because, of course, I'm limited. I have my prejudices and biases. Okay, so experience is not the end all be all, but it's a good form of knowledge as well. We experience things. So yeah, I might not be able to explain to you, say, for example, my belief in a God, but I have an experience. There's something I've experienced, which could be false. There might be all sorts of other reasons for what I experience that I think is a God, a presence of a God. That's true. Okay, fine. I need to be aware of that. I need to be aware of that. At least I think I need to be aware of it. Some people will be just, no! The experience is infallible. Now, if there's a God, that's the only thing that's infallible, not me. So the belief is that reality hints to us of God. If it's a world that was created by a God, then the God is somehow, and the God's present to that world in some way, or even within that world, if you believe that, then it should, he or she or whatever it is, should be open to my experience, shouldn't it? Why wouldn't it be? It doesn't make God less. Say, but God's God. You can't understand God. God's unknowable, right? Okay, yeah. That doesn't mean I can't experience it. I got you, Ms. Villa. I'm right there with you. Okay, Dr. Dunn, stop. Ms. Villa says no, stop. I'm stopping. I'll see you on Thursday. God bless you all. Have a good day, miss. Thank you. Have a good day, sir.